So Christian and Simon, thank you for joining me, especially so early and after Wednesday, which is typically the longest night of the conference. Why don't we start with a really basic question to warm up? Can you talk about your individual careers? Who are you?
Okay, I've been in this wonderful world of branding now, I think, for about just over 20 years. And I fell into it completely and utterly by mistake.
How's that?
Well, I had no idea what I wanted to do. Absolutely no idea what I wanted to do at all. And I was at a dinner party, and somebody said, it was in the Guardian paper. They used to have a creative media section, and said, "Look, here's a sales an advert saying business development manager required for design agency needs to speak German. Why don't you go for that?" And given the fact that I had at that stage little, if any, idea what a business development manager was or a design agency, I thought, well, why not? Because clearly it can't be that hard. And I got the job, and that was 22 years ago. And so I've just sort of progressed through various different agencies over the last 22 years as a result of a complete fortuitous.
So no regrets?
No, I don't have any regrets, because I think one of the things that we find consistently is that we work in a fantastic business for fantastic agencies and can have a lot of fun whilst doing it. Hence the reason why my voice is slightly croaky this morning.
What about you, Sam?
A history and philosophy degree. And then a couple of years working as a chef in some of those dark, dingy kitchens that one always kind of wonders what actually goes on there, was, I would say, sort of perfect credentials to getting into the industry, you know. And I guess I went to an event. My father was in public relations and actually sold his business many years ago to Saatchi & Saatchi when Mr. Sorrell was there as the famous CFO and business development director, and he was in PR, and he basically said, "I really think you ought to think about communications as a business." So I chose not to go into PR but into advertising initially, and I was inspired by a creative man called John Webster, sadly passed away a year or two ago. But I went to BNP and had a look at their work, and then after that I said, this is the industry for me, and I was a graduate trainee at Ogilvy. And 30 years later, here I am today, having been posted in lots of different countries like Christian to around the world. So I've worked in New York and San Francisco and Kuala Lumpur and Bangkok and India, and it's been a great journey. And I'll echo some of what Christian says.
So over the course of your long and interesting careers, is there any piece of work that inspired you specifically that you hold up as a model today?
It's a good question. What's the most inspiring piece of work? I mean, in the advertising provenance, I would say, where do you start? I mean, over the years, it's been the iconic kind of TV work that came out of, as I said, BNP, so the type of work that was done for John Smith's Bitter, which was a famous campaign then, and some of the incredible work that's been done, on the Guinness brand over the years by various different agencies, and almost, I think, advertising in the days when the business was much more controllable, and we didn't have the social and the digital world that we're in now. I think there was always a sense of anticipation when a big campaign was about to roll out, because it was for a famous client, Heineken or someone like that.
I like this.
So that, I think, is one of the big changes. I'm not sure that we're all anticipating the next big work. We're actually more kind of anticipating the next amazing thing that's going to come from Apple, but I'm not sure we think about the communication as much.
I mean, I think certainly in the world of branding and design, I love the fact that there are certain iconic brands, be they Sony, be they Shell, be they Nike, be they Adidas, be they a lot of the car brands, who have remained pretty much the same since their inception, whether that be 30, 50, 100 years ago. And I think that's about having the confidence to understand who you are, stick to your guns, and be consistent around a very simple idea. Now, obviously, that needs to evolve over time, but when you really look at those brands, they just remain consistent. They understand what they are, and I think that I've got a huge amount of admiration for that.
Yeah. I like this point that you've made about iconic brands. And to that end, I have an off-the-cuff question. Do you guys consider yourselves more susceptible to advertising or less, given that you work in the industry?
I think that I mean, again, an interesting question. I think that we have the ability to be both hypercritical and celebratory in equal measure. And I think that someone like Cannes is a perfect opportunity to celebrate all of the great stuff that's here. But let's be fair, there's disproportionately a large amount of not so great stuff that's out there. And I think that as far as I'm concerned, I would like to focus much more on the great stuff that comes out that really is inspiring and builds on the sort of heritage of our industry. But I think that we can be very hypercritical.
Let's talk about Cannes also. Cannes also is a collaborative effort by a number of agencies that was brought to Cannes Lions last year. Can you explain to us what it is and what it aims to accomplish? I know that you had mentioned that it's a kind of recognition of the importance of design and advertising. Can you elaborate on that, for example?
Sure. I mean, as far as I'm concerned, what Cannes also was, or is Cannes is the great expression of small, big, international, local agency work being brought into the public domain and celebrated. And I think that the crucial factor in all of everything that I've just said is that it's through agencies.
Yeah.
And amassed here this week is the greatest concentration of talent that you can possibly have. And I think Cannes also is about celebrating individual creative talent and bringing that to the forefront. And last year we kicked off the program by having a thing called the Big Book, which was an international photography exhibition.
Yeah, that was a lot of fun.
It was a lot of fun, and this year what we wanted to do was take the opportunity to, as I say, celebrate individual creativity by going back to what Simon was saying before about the whole experience. And introducing something where people could interact and actually really experience creativity. And I think that there's a comment that somebody made which is about releasing the inner child. And I think that one of the things that I've just found amazing is that when you're a kid, if you play with a dinosaur and a soldier and a truck and some bricks, it's completely natural. And as we get older and we try and put things into their own boxes, that doesn't make sense anymore. And I think that there's something wonderful about the way that children just interact with their environment. So we wanted to create an environment which was all about bringing creativity to the fore, but making that experiential and interactive and releasing the inner child.
Well, you've said quite a lot there, so I will agree with you. I mean, I think it's I think it's creative therapy, is what this is about.
I've actually passed by the Play Make Master tent a couple of times, and it's a really stimulating place. You've got balloon animals, stop action animation, Lego statues. There are a lot of things that your mind is already starting to play with even before you touch anything. Are there any inspiring stories that are coming out of it? What's the feedback been like?
Yeah. Well, I guess we've got lots already. I mean, anecdotally, Martin Sorrell popped over yesterday. He's kind of, I think, sort of challenged our companies to really perform and win Cannes Lions. And actually, one of the things that we did was we created a Cannes Lion for him out of Lego. And
that's awesome. Did he keep it?
He said it's going to go in his office, and we haven't quite worked out where we're going to send it to because it's enormous. It's bigger than any Cannes Lion you've seen before.
Yeah.
And so I think we're pushing him to put it into the New York office because he's got a bigger office there. I mean, his English office is all full of cricket bats, so I think.
Yeah. So last question before we finish up. What are you looking for this week, or have you already found it?
I mean, I've seen some great stuff this week. There's no doubt that the industry is, I think in general, is feeling more confident than it has for quite a while, and you kind of pick that up. Of course, there are all the challenges we know in the economy and, issues with how, clients are, challenged. But also there is, I think, so much sort of clever kind of work through the different kind of avenues. So, I'm inspired.
I think that one of the things that I find fascinating is that 5 years ago, when it was the first year of the Design Lions, it was a much clearer delineation between who was entering which category. And I think that as the world, clearly rapidly becomes infinitely less controllable and more digital, that delineation is no longer there or even relevant. And I think that, one of the things that I find fascinating is that, nowadays we're in a situation where potentially a client walks in and says, okay, I'm no longer here with a brief for advertising or for PR or for branding or design. I'm here with a budget. Can you help me? And so I think that, it is, as Simon absolutely rightly says, we're in the currency of ideas, and we're constantly being challenged to come up with new ones. And I think that there is a blurring of those lines. But I think that, as long as we stick to what we're good at and focus on that and keep challenging ourselves, and by the way, can have fun whilst doing it, then hopefully, touch wood, we'll be sitting here having the same conversation next year with a slightly better answer than that.
All right. Well, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you, Angela.
Thank you.